It's been 8 years of killings and bombings in Syria in an intra-country conflict. Some reports say almost 152,000 had been killed as of April 2016. Well, Germany is one of the countries which has been on the receiving end of refugees fleeing Syria. And this week there is a raging debate in Germany which has been in Germany as to whether or not to establish a security zone in northern Syria with NATO partners as well as Turkey and Russia. But what does that even mean? Yesterday we crossed over to our partners DW in Berlin, where correspondent Austin Davis explained further. Setting up a security zone in these areas in Syria.
So quite frankly, what brought about this debate was probably the U.S. withdrawal of its forces in northern Syria. The Kurds were a pretty integral part of the U.S.-led coalition to fight the so-called Islamic State and other Islamic terror groups within Syria. And the U.S. withdrawing its forces was seen here, especially by the defense minister, almost as a last straw, one could say. And that could be seen as the straw that broke the camel's back in her taking some initiative to have Germany lead the charge in coming up with some new diplomatic solutions. And we saw that on Monday evening when she gave an exclusive interview to DW, in which she surprised many here domestically but also internationally in calling for an international security zone to be established in northern Syria, not only to protect minority groups and Kurdish civilians there in northern Syria, but also to help stabilize the region and pick up the fight again against the so-called Islamic State and other terror groups in the region.
So when the defense minister says to set up security zones in northern Syria with the NATO partners, she talks about Turkey and Russia as well. Can you explain what exactly the security zone and the dynamics are there? What does it mean?
So that's exactly right. The defense minister said that this would be an international coalition of partners who would help in establishing the security zone. And she said that would include Turkey and Russia. Russia, she said, is one of the most influential, whether one likes it or not, one of the most influential power brokers in the region. And Turkey obviously is engaging in this defensive in northern Syria. As to what that means, that's left up to debate, quite frankly. The defense minister didn't give any sort of indications or details as to what this security zone in northern Syria would look like. We have some sort of indications, however, coming out of Strasbourg today, where the members of the European Parliament were discussing heatedly this morning the offensive in northern Syria. This proposal by the German defense minister was brought up a few times. Some were calling for a UN-led mission, boots on the ground, which would require a vote of the Security Council, obviously a very politically tricky matter to accomplish. Others were calling for economic sanctions against Turkey. So what this exactly will look like is still up in the air.
Interesting. But we know that DW has also been running a poll on whether or not Germany should go ahead with this security zone establishments, etc. Now, first of all, from what you've said, if people don't really understand what's going to happen, how the security zone is going to be, I'm curious to find out what the people are saying. What have you gathered from this poll so far?
Yes, so in this initial data that we've had on our website, this poll, this survey on our website the past few days, about 57% are saying that they would be in support of a security zone that helps pick up the baton in once again fighting against Islamic State and other terror cells in the region. They believe it would help stabilize the region. About 14% are still undecided, and about 29% think that it would just bring too many political players into this argument. And that's quite interesting. The defense minister's statements are certainly a paradigm shift in German defense policy. Up until now, Germany has been very restrained in taking any sort of unilateral action or making any sort of unilateral calls and calling for any sort of military intervention. So this is quite the paradigm shift. This poll is showing that many of our readers, most of our readers, do support some sort of stabilization mechanism or security zone within northern Syria. However, the question is, how is this actually going to be accomplished, and what would that mean? Now, if German troops were to be deployed to the region, that would require a vote in the Bundestag, the German parliament. If a UN mission was to be deployed, that would of course require a Security Council vote. That will be pretty difficult, seeing as how Russia sits on the Security Council, and the US as well has already pulled out its troops from the region. And we do not know exactly what this protective region would look like. Would that mean boots on the ground, or would it be merely a no-fly zone? So although a majority of our readers, as I said, have indicated in this survey that they would support some type of zone, especially when it comes to preventing Islamic terror, it's still up in the air as to what that would look like.
Up in the air as to what that will look like. That sounds like a long way ahead. But finally, Austin, where do we go from here? I mean, what next, really, within the shortest, immediate, long term? What's going to happen away from now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As I said, in Strasbourg today, members of the European Parliament debated this heatedly, but also we had a meeting of the defense ministers who are in the NATO member states today in Brussels. And this is obviously going to be on the table. In fact, we already know it has been discussed, at least between German Defense Minister Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer and Jens Stoltenberg, the UN Secretary General. He gave a statement to reporters not too long ago, just a few hours ago, in which he said that he had already talked about the proposal with the German defense minister, and that now it is up to the member states for her to present to other member states her proposal. Now, Jens Stoltenberg was very clear in saying, while this proposal is just that in the interim, that it's just a proposal, that there needs to be some sort of political consensus if any type of action is going to be taken in northern Syria, whether that means establishing a protective zone for refugees and to pick up the fight against Islamic terror, or whether or not that means some sort of sanctioning mechanism against Turkey, Russia, or other players involved. Political consensus seems to be the point that Jens Stoltenberg is making, and frankly, we don't know if we're going to receive that at this time.
Austin, thank you very much for that update and analysis. That's Austin Davis, the correspondent with our pod. Austin Davis there, who gave us those explanations yesterday. Well, this is still the Pulse with me, Gifty and Dopia. Today we'll do something very special as far as sports on the Pulse is concerned. We're looking at GFA as it goes into that crucial watershed moment tomorrow. Gary Al Smith and the team right up after this with all of that and more.